Let's get into this week's episode. This is the second episode of the Beyond Grief podcast. Yes, I'm so happy that you're here and listening. Thank you for the subscriptions and the likes and the comments. I deeply appreciate your encouragement thus far. Truly, family, it's really lovely. So this week I want to answer two questions that I received from people directly to my messages. The first one is, how do you make it through your days in your new norm? Yeah, so this question is specifically pertaining to recent death of a loved one or recent loss of a loved one. And I feel this, I feel this question. I have felt this question many times now. How will I make it through? How will I make it through? At this point, I know I'll make it through because I have made it in the past, but I also so deeply trust in the resilience of people. I think that we are incredibly creative. When we are open and curious, magic comes into our lives. And, there are so many ways of receiving information and insight and inspiration and love, and so many ways of cultivating those things from within that, I just really trust in the strength that we have. That said, how do I personally make it through my days in my new norm when I've lost a loved one? Well, the first thing I do is take extra good care of my physical body. Now, I touched on this last episode, the relationship between the emotions and the physical body and how we experience absolutely everything that we can name through this body. And I listen to a lot of podcasts and do reading, and I've been studying herbs and nutrition and plants and plant care for almost 20 years. It's been about 18 years. And so I'd say my relationship with nature is something that I will be learning from for the rest of my life. And nature has so many wonderful, beautiful clues for us, and it offers us so much respite and peace from being really busy, being in crowded cities, from just the mundane, from heaviness. Like, as soon as I start to feel weird, just like any kind of inkling of like, I feel weird, I just don't feel good. Like maybe I watched something on TV that was kind of violent, which I did do recently. And I was like, God, I gotta shake that off. Like, let me go for a walk. Because I know, just like we see dogs do or cats do or geese do, animals do, when they've experienced something that could potentially be traumatic, they go shake. They shake it off. And honestly, like, I try to do the same thing. And even if I'm not shaking my body, what I'll do is I'll go for a walk. Or if I have it in me, I'll jump up and down or run or something like that. Do something aerobic to get my heart rate up and begin to shift my brain to something else. So that's one way, right? But as more of like a daily practice, an ongoing practice, I would say I take extra good care of myself. So when my friend died last year, I was making watermelon juice when I got the call. It was the dead of summer. It was really hot, so I'd been making watermelon juice and drinking that regularly anyway. It's good for blood circulation and heart function. It's extremely hydrating and cooling, has a lot of vitamins and minerals in it, so it's just really great to drink watermelon juice with the rind. So I'd been making this juice, and then I got the call. I felt my body in a kind of shock, and then I went back to making watermelon juice to treat the shock. So I knew that I would need to pay extra care to my body in the coming days, because I would have to endure not just the shock, but all of the attention that death requires, because when it's someone close to us, then we have to deal with family, and we have to deal with all the friends, the mutual friends, and everybody. And I mean, for me, that's what I felt like I had to deal with. It was a way that I could honor, her passing, was to deal with it with everyone else in a way that was also caring for myself, because again, I didn't want to overgive. But so, 1, I treated myself with watermelon juice, and 2, I started taking a very bitter black aloe. And so I keep this black aloe. It comes in little pieces of resin, and it's extremely bitter. Like, I only have to take maybe a piece the size of, I don't know, a quarter of a grain of rice, maybe even less, like a speck sometimes. It's so strong and so bitter. And I put that in a glass of water. I swish it around and let it dissolve in the water, and then I drink it. Now, aloe has so many health benefits. It helps to clean the colon, to clean the blood. It is used by most people as a topical ointment in the event of cuts, scrapes, burns, to help speed healing and heal holistically. But internally, I think of it as sort of an emotional wound healer as well. And when I got faced with the news of my best friend shedding her body, I just knew that I wanted to face this directly. I wanted to face this head on, and that there would be difficult times in it. There was some difficulty in it. And so the way that I did that was sort of, I sort of matched what it felt like with the herb. So aloe is a really bitter herb. The feelings I figured would be pretty strong, sometimes really unpalatable. So it was like inoculating myself with it, or like giving myself an emotional vaccine, if you will. So I fed myself with this bitter herb every morning while I sat quietly at my ancestral altar. And I maybe did that for about 2 weeks. I would say that significantly helped me get through just the first stages of dealing with that loss. And as a side effect of it, my colon was doing really well, which was great. So yeah, in total, my answer to that question, how do you make it through your days in your new normal, I'd say is by taking extra care of myself. I would go and get a massage. I would get my feet done, or a foot massage, or foot reflexology, something that disperses the energy and moves the energy in my body, and also is really relaxing and relieving of any tension. Vitamin B complex in liquid form is like my go-to with any stressful situation. And even if you don't feel like it's stressful, I would say do it anyway, because we just sort of live in a society where there is a lot of stress. And whether we're conscious of it or not, we pick up on the energy around us, the energy in our environment, which is a collection of everyone else's stuff around us. And that's why I think that cultivating your own inner energy is so important, because we really affect our world and we affect the people around us. So with that, the society we live in is pretty stressful. There's a lot of anxiety. We use our phones all the time. That produces a level of anxiety that we might not have known before. I mean, if you turn on the news on any day at any time, it can be really stressful. And on top of that, just drop a bomb that you've lost a loved one. Like, we might not immediately consider grief as a stressor, but it is. And that's why, that's why the acupuncture works. That's why the breath work works. That's why the dance and movement and stretching works for it. But also, I love to talk about what to put in the body internally and what to do for the systems, because, oh my gosh, it just helps so much to support the mind and the heart with the right foods and herbs and daily practices that just help soften and integrate the experience that we're having with grief or stress. And aside from, just what we put in our bodies from the outside, the mentality that I have, I have to be caring. I have to be kind to myself. Everything that I experience is okay to experience. There may be times that it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient in the place that I'm experiencing it, or maybe the people I'm around I don't feel entirely trusting of or safe with, so that's uncomfortable and I'd rather not experience what I'm experiencing around them because I don't feel safe. But if I can create a safe space for myself where I can go, maybe, as a daily practice, especially when someone has first transitioned, that can start a really good practice of creating the container that I need to be fully myself, to express what's going on so that I don't hold anything, and so that my pains aren't turned into anger and turned into further grief and disease. I need a place that I can call my own, where I know I'm safe and I'm safe to express. And for me, that place, after the deaths of my family members, that place was creating an altar to them. I first learned about creating altars when I was learning in the tradition of Ifa. And Ifa is an earth-based spiritual practice that incorporates the wisdom and the lives of our ancestors, and also the natural elements and the supreme God, creator of all of this. I really gravitated toward this practice because it felt like it would meet me where I am. It didn't require me to change into a whole different human to be worthy of practicing. It really it has allowed me to grow and to experience life and come into more understanding of it over time. And that's okay. So that's where I first learned to make ancestral altars. And since then, I've learned about creating various types of altars. I have a practice of creating altars that's not always ancestral, but sometimes I'll create an altar just to my home because it's a very special place for me. It's a place where I sleep and I nourish myself and I do a lot of internal work. So I want to keep the spirit of my home fresh and lively and resonating with my spiritual growth. So I create an altar to my home, and it's very simple. I'll just grab some things that remind me of the spiritual essence of being, basically. And most times those items are things that I've gathered from nature, like stones, like plants, like I'll have a candle so I could light a fire. I may have a crystal glass bowl or a clay bowl that I can fill with water so that there is a presence of water. I really love clay and stones, so I'll use them in some manner. I like to create new environments to light incense because the smoke from the incense is ethereal looking to me and sort of just reminds me of being light, allowing things to burn off and releasing them. So there are so many ways to create altars, and I love to do it because it is creative, I mean, sometimes it's just having a place where fresh flowers go and a picture of my mother or my grandmother right under it. So very simple ways to sort of not just honor our formless loved ones, but also to honor the spirit of the places where we are, the relationships that we continue to be in. So creating an altar is just a stellar way of having a visual, physical space that you can offer your prayers to, your thoughts, your tears, your grievances, yourself. And I think so many of us really, really need that space to just be open and honest and ultimately expressive without negatively impacting anyone around us, but so that we can hear ourselves, we can know ourselves better. And a lot of people do this through journaling. Keeping a diary is a way to really know yourself and see your thoughts out loud. And, we never want anybody to see it because it's vulnerable, right? I mean, those really deep, deep parts of ourselves. I just feel like an altar space is so powerful as a tool to relate with our loved ones and relate with ourselves beyond the point of transition. And I think that brings me to the second question that I got, which is about shadows. How do we navigate the shadows in our world? And this is a question about the shadow self, right? The things that we don't like to look at, the parts of ourselves that maybe are not as amicable. The shadows, I think of the shadows as like the moon, right? The moon has no light of its own, but it's lit by the sun. And at times, because of the rotation of the sun and the earth and the moon around us, we don't always see the entirety of the moon, but it's there, right? It's there and it's affecting us and it's affecting the things around us all the time. In that way, shadows are not bad. They're not evil. They're not something that we should run from and just always try to illuminate, because there's a time and a place. Just like the moon has cycles, it cannot always be illuminated. So I think I really approach this from a feminine mindset, that we require both the sun and the moon, the light and the shadows, to holistically integrate ourselves with life. And one of the shadows, I think, of grieving is the way that it changes you. And you can't really anticipate how it's going to change you. It's sort of like this cliff that, you decide to jump off of, and hope and pray that you find your feet under you when it's time to land. And even if you do land, when you land, right? When you land, you may have a sense of accomplishment and increased courage and pride in yourself for taking that leap that was so hard to do, but you also broke your ankle. It's like that. It's like it doesn't come without its physical repercussions, without its challenges. So for me, I've noticed in myself over the past 6 years, I really went into a hermitage. I had been a late 20-something, early 30-something socialite, artist on the scene, producing things, making things, going to other people's events, making my own events, having this whole wonderful young burgeoning artist life. And then my grandmother got sick and quickly passed away, and I didn't have the energy to grieve her. And I knew I didn't have the energy. And by that, I mean, because of what I experienced with my mother and dealing with her passing, I had a strength and an energy and a courage and a will to be with my mother and to offer myself of service to her that I just didn't have 8 years later when my grandmother was passing. I had been working full time. Again, I was a socialite. I was going and doing all the things, exerting all this energy, but not paying enough attention to pour back into myself so that my cup was overflowing from within. And so when my grandmother passed, I knew I didn't have the energy to have the full grieving experience. So what ended up happening was my body did it for me. I got really sick with a lung infection, I went to 3 different doctors. They didn't know what was wrong, but something was definitely going on where I was no longer able to work. I was no longer able to go out and socialize. My entire life changed over the course of a few months. I had to move because I was having trouble breathing where I was. And, that was a really important time because it got me onto sort of what I would say is the right path for my life. Like, it made me move into the mountains and I got to breathe fresh air, and I had a closer relationship with nature, and I, could reset my circadian rhythms, and I started taking better care of myself and learning how to care for myself. But I also had a lung injury. Like, literally, I had scar tissue from the way that my lungs were infected. And in traditional Chinese medicine, the lungs are the place that store grief, which also means they are a place that stores joy. And when my grandmother passed and I didn't have the energy to grieve externally, my body internally did the work of grieving by inflicting this illness on me that forced me into changing my life and my lifestyle for the better. But it still has taken 6 years. Now we're in the 7th year before I've actually been healthy enough, aware enough, disciplined enough, and also soft enough in myself to just enjoy the practice of caring for myself, enjoy the practice of cooking at home, nourishing myself, to really set my values in place the way that I really feel them from inside myself. So, that's sort of the shadow with the sun. The sun is that, yes, I made it to this lifestyle that I knew I needed to do for myself. I knew I needed to accomplish, but it wasn't even that I wasn't motivated. It's that I wasn't disciplined, I suppose. I wasn't disciplined in myself enough to make the changes that I knew I needed to make to live well. And so now I'm living well, and I've made those changes. I've applied that discipline, and I enjoy the practices of taking care of my lifestyle now. But in order to get here, I had to go through a series of deaths and losses and grievances and illnesses as a result of grievances. I don't think that we all have to go through that, but I did. And here's what I learned from it. And I know that other people are going to go through similar events in their lives, things that point them in the right direction, but it is damn difficult to go through it even before you get pointed in the right direction. So that's sort of how I think of the shadow of this, and why I respect it and want to incorporate it so much is because I know what it can do. I know what good it can do as the final outcome. And that sort of reminds me of the presence of death that I felt when my mother was passing, because I was so present and so spiritually open at that time with her. I remember actually feeling a physical change in the room. I could feel what I call is the presence of death. And it wasn't like this grim reaper thing, this like shadowy figure. Nah, it wasn't none of that. It wasn't scary. It wasn't even gloomy. It was like, it made it clear, oh, death is here, like a presence with my mother, because she is in her transition. And because of meeting that presence at that time, I've better been able to recognize when the presence is with another loved one or another. And I have been able to recognize that. And I think that could be termed as a shadow. But what I decided to do with it was sort of dance with it, was respect its presence, was ask it, hey, is there something you want me to know? Or is there something that I should do also to aid and assist in the transition of this person who I love? So yeah, that brings me back to this thought of curiosity, this offering a curious mind to life, even and especially when things are hard, when you're faced with a difficult reality. And it's so complex, as I really don't think there is a shadow without there being light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So yeah, that's that. I think I've answered those questions as best as I know how to at this moment. And overall, I think the lesson is to take really, really good care of self. It's so worth it. It helps you grieve better. It helps you integrate better. It helps you be in better relationship with the people around you when you take care of yourself. When I take care of me, I have it to give openly, kindly to you. And that's worth so much more to me than like the company of misery. So that's really it's a values thing. What do you value? What can you learn from this moment? What is it trying to show you? What's it pointing to? What are you really feeling underneath all of the shock? And learning to be okay with what those feelings are, to accept them, to embrace them, to love them, to nurture them. Basically, to give yourself what you might advise someone else on. To give yourself the care and compassion and understanding about the complexities of your emotions at this time. There's so much that we don't know. There's way more mystery in the world than there is known in the world. So open up to find something different, something we've never touched before. And that leads to this beautiful unfolding, like a flower blossoming from the muck. You can make it through. And not only can you make it, you can become bigger from it. You can become wiser, better, more grounded. You can recognize more beauty, more love, more light in your life. You can feel held by a presence, a spirit, an awareness, a consciousness that you hadn't known before. Those things can be worthy of your efforts to get through it. I'd like to just take a few minutes with you to breathe. Thank you so much, beloved. Thanks for listening thus far. I hope that you feel less alone after listening to this podcast. I hope that you feel safe because you are, and I hope that you feel loved. There is nothing in any known universe that can separate you from the love that you are. Until next time, peace, beloved.